My name is Mary Namaganda. I'm the assistant curator. Our curator is not here, Dr. Paul Segawa. He's not in today, but I'll do the thing. You're very welcome. When he told me about the group coming and about art, and I was like, okay, what am I going to tell artists? Yes, but I'll do what we do, and then you'll ask questions. Yes. Please, as I speak, I may go maybe a little bit off and be taken to the science side. Yes. Bring me back. Ask me questions so that you can benefit the most out of this. Yeah. Okay? So this herbarium is an old one. First of all, a herbarium is a collection of dried plant specimens. They are dried and preserved. So it is the opposite of a botanic garden where we keep live specimens. And a direct link of the herbarium, people usually don't know about herbaria, but they know about museums, the zoological museum. So ours is like the museum in zoology, where they keep dead or preserved animal specimens. Yeah, the difference with us is that we keep a lot because plant diversity is really high. You can have the same species showing a lot of morphological variation among others. So we keep a lot of specimens from different locations to capture all that variation. And I'm sure as artists, variation is one of the things that you enjoy to look at. Yeah, so I don't want to address things from here. I'll take you into the building so that we talk as we look at the specimens and look at the herbarium, what it is. Okay? You're welcome. Oh yeah, this herbarium, the Makerere University herbarium, is about, how old is it, from 1946? Quite an old. Someone do the math for me? Well, it was started in 1946. Short of 90 years. And together with a botanic garden, we have a 1 hectare botanic garden. And we have collections that date way before 1946. So one may wonder, you said we start 1946 and I could show you specimens that are much older than that. It's because originally there was a herbarium during the very early times of doing this research in Uganda. And that herbarium was housed by the then forest department, where the Entebbe Botanic Garden is. I don't know if some of you have had a chance to go there. So when that herbarium closed and this opened, the specimens were brought here. And this one serves as the national herbarium, and it's the biggest functional herbarium that we have in the country. So we operate as the national herbarium, though we are housed in the university. Yes. There are other smaller herbaria, what technically is called local herbaria, in different institutions. The different forest reserves have their local herbaria, and they are mandated to keep specimens for that local area. If it's a national park, then it's for that national park. If it's a forest reserve, it's only specimens, plant specimens that grow in that forest reserve. But with us, we have a national mandate, so we keep all plant specimens, or we are supposed to keep all plant specimens that grow in the country. But we also have specimens from beyond the borders of Uganda through ways of research and exchange of material. Yes, usually when we collect specimens, we collect more than one individual from the same location, and we share out with other herbaria. So they keep ours, we keep theirs. But the majority that we have are Ugandan plants. We cannot claim to have everything that grows in the country. Discoveries are always going on. I'm sure there is that place somewhere on top of the Renzori mountain where no one has reached. Maybe there's a new species, okay? And when we talk of new species in science, we mean it could be new to the country. It could be a species that is already known to occur elsewhere, but not known in the country as yet. So that would be a new species. But of course, the catchy moment is when you get the new species to science, one that has not been described before. All right? That is not very common, but yes, it does occur in the areas that have been poorly or not surveyed at all. So those difficult to reach places, very high mountains, maybe in the middle of a swamp that is difficult to navigate, you could find something that could be new, either new to the country or new to science. So we just need to go out and explore. Yeah, I like being out and exploring.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the plants we keep range from the very tiny little plants. You know, when I talk about plants, I like to talk about evolution, from how those who want to believe in evolution, okay? But of course, God created everything.
Yeah.
But things change over time.
Yeah.
Yeah, just as things like language changes, not so.
Yeah.
So organisms also change, and plants are very prone to such changes. When the environment changes, the plants easily respond. So we have the little plants, the mosses. If you look around the buildings, around the trenches, you'll see some greenish material. On the veranda, you see that. Those are the tiny little plants. So we keep those little guys, and we also keep the big trees, okay? But don't expect to see a big tree inside that building. I'll show you how we keep representative specimens to indicate, to represent such big specimens. So we have from the most primitive to the most advanced we keep. And then as scientists, our uses are not really biased. As botanists, we keep plants that may seem not to have any use at all, but nothing is useless. It may not have use to us, to man. It will have use to the ecosystem. So everything is scientifically valuable. So we keep everything, whether it's useful to man or not, we do keep representatives of them. So I want to explain the functions of the herbarium while we look at the things. Okay? Yeah, so shall we? First, we keep the temperatures low here because the plants are food to a lot of things. Without plants, there is no life. When the plants are dead, there are those little insects, pests that want to come and eat them. So keeping the temperature low is one of the methods of controlling pest attack, pest infestations. Some will maneuver through, they'll come. You know, as I said, things get adapted, organisms get adapted to new environments. So there are those naughty pests that still come in, but we try to fight them through various ways. If this doesn't work for a certain pest, then we take the specimen and freeze it for some days. Okay? So we kill them by freezing. Long ago, we used to poison, but most of the effective herbarium poisons have been found to be not accepted at high concentrations to us. So the World Health Organization has banned all herbaria to use those poisons that we're using. Most of them were mercury-based. So we no longer can do that. We have to fight the pests the physical way. You box it, it boxes you. Yes. So I'm going to bring some specimens here. And then after we look at what the specimen is and we shall discuss the values, then we shall walk through, have a walk through, and look at the rest of the collection. So we have this here, okay? You see the plant, it was uprooted and dried and kept. And if someone can read for us, it was collected in which year? What date?
1970.
1970, all right? And it is even older than me. Yes, so we have a lot of them, and this is not the oldest that we have. Most of our collections date back in the 1930s, and our oldest dates in the 1890s, I think it's 1893. And we have several collections from the early 1900s, 1905, 1908, but the bulk of the collections comes from between 1930 and 1945. Yes. So this way, we keep a folder, and in a folder, we have individuals belonging to the same species. So we keep the species name on the folder, and this is Helichrysum globosum. And in here, we have different species, different specimens of the same species, collected from different localities by different people at different times. Okay? So this came from Bufumbira, that is in the southern tip, yes, of Uganda. And this one, you know, we don't usually like to put them upright. They're so old, their parts can fall off. So we prefer to keep them horizontal. This one, collected in 1962, came from the same area in Chigezi, but in a place called Mafuga. There's a swamp called Mafuga, for those who know the places. So we then keep adding. You know, these have been collected those years back. If I went back to the same locations or visited another location, collected from there, I would just add to this. We don't throw away. So herbaria always keep growing. And the biggest herbaria in the world have millions of specimens. I think the Kew Herbarium now talks of like 10 million or something. Kew Gardens, yeah. The last record I saw, that publication was made several years back, and it was 9 million, over 9 million. So probably they've made 10 now. And for us here, we are just a little under 100,000, okay? So if we had the funds to go out and collect, we would be having more. Some places have been collected a lot, and others have not been collected a lot. So what is the significance of all this? All right? I said in this file, we have specimens that have come from different locations in the country. Can someone guess? How useful can that be, just by location? Diversity? Yes.
See how the same plant grows in different places. That's what I
Okay, there is one thing, morphological diversity, all right? We look at the differences in the plants that grow in different areas, all right? And that is very important when we are doing taxonomic research work, okay? And when we are doing conservation, the importance of this kind of collecting distribution information is to know the distribution. We draw maps, species distribution maps. So you get the different locations. These labels, okay, this is all, they didn't do it. There's provision for the latitude and longitude. That is the precise location. These days it is a requirement when you go out to collect, you must have a GPS. And this GPS will give you the point location. So you get these point locations and put them on a map, then you'll generate a species distribution map. And that is important for conservation, all right? Now, the very interesting thing about these historical records is that you can trace back to see what is happening to the species, all right? This was collected in 1962, the other one we saw was 1970, this one 1969, and so on. You look through the files and you get them really old. But the question would be, are they still there? To the conservationist, we want to know, are they protected? Are they there? All right? Some of these locations, the population has grown. All right?
You know exactly.
Yeah, this is Kamwacha. And at the time they collected, the habitat, the place where it was picked, was lowland that is seasonally inundated, seasonally flooded. All right? Yes, Kamwacha can flood, but do we have that open area anymore? Most likely this particular species is not there. But it's good to know that it was once there. All right? So if we find that a particular species habitat has been lost because of population growth, urbanization, agriculture, things that come with population growth, then we shall raise an alarm and say habitats of this particular species have been destroyed. We need to not preserve, but conserve them, okay? So then we shall go and hunt for the last guy in the habitat and make a live collection, all right? That is when we start cultivating them in the botanic garden. Okay? So this is so easy to do if you have different maps. You know, there are maps of land use in Uganda and land cover. So if I got the land cover or land use map of the country and I plotted my distribution map over them, you overlay it, then you'll be it will show very clearly. You will have a school somewhere, and then your point goes in that school compound. So chances are it is not there, right? Yes. So we use these maps to help guide us on the status of the species, and then we decide whether it needs active conservation or not. Okay? Then the other thing is there may be places where it grows that have not been yet explored for it. Or people go to collect there and they ignore it. You know, when I go to collect, I may collect because the flower is beautiful. All right? Yeah. You'll go to collect, you'll collect because you know it has medicine. He'll go to collect, he'll collect because he has never seen it. Okay? When we go collecting, we have different objectives and then different, shall I say, enthusiastic drives that drive us. Okay? So it may be in other locations, but has not caught anyone's eye, has not caught anyone's interest. So then we shall look at the habitat information that is written on this label and look for similar habitats in the country. So we go there and hunt specifically for this particular species that we'll be interested in. So if we find it out there in several other habitats, then that is good news. We shall say, all right, it is there. The habitats have been destroyed in many places, but it can still be conserved in nature. Okay? But if these places are few, then we bring it and domesticate it in a botanic garden. So most herbaria actually operate hand in hand with a botanic garden for these purposes. We don't want to lose anything, even if it's not your food, it's not her medicine, it's nothing. It serves a great purpose in the ecosystem. I think the world would be different without you. Not so?
Yes.
Oh, yes. We all are special in our own ways. So likewise, the plants are special in their own ways. Yeah. This label is very important to us. Sometimes bad things happen. Those pests come, they eat the specimen. We lose it. That is very unfortunate. But we don't throw the shit away because this information here is very, very critical to us to do conservation. When we look at the habitat, that guides us future conservation work, future explorations, okay? Or if you want to domesticate it, what kind of environment are you going to create in your botanic garden? Because botanic gardens are about simulating environments, and then you domesticate the specimens in the right environments. If we had that rich botanic garden, we'd be having greenhouses where we have different climates simulated for the different species. So this is what we call a herbarium label. It is very, very important to us. The other key information is the name. You must make sure that the name, before you put the specimen in the herbarium, the name should be correct. Okay? We cannot manage with wrong names because that is the basis of what we do. So if you came, found a plant that had the wrong name, you'll go with wrong information. Okay? So the name is important. The collection locality is important, especially the grid reference, the GPS points. Very, very important. Then we have the habitat description. That is key for us. What environment does it come from? And we put the collection date. As we've seen, the date is important also. Now about the date, it helps to tell us the trends of occurrence of species. I could be interested in a certain plant, let us say Prunus africana. They talk a lot about it, maybe you've heard about it, that anti-cancer tree, all right? And we know, or I know, it grows in Mabira forest, okay? So I may want to do a quick check. Is it still there in Mabira? How has the populations been growing over the years? Then I may start with my files that have Prunus africana, and I pull out those individuals that came from Mabira, and I start following, all right? It was collected first maybe in 1922, next collection in 1950, next collection in 2008. Then I would have to ask myself, why those big gaps? Is it because it's rare in the forest? Okay. Usually when the plants are rare, they are more difficult to collect. They are rarely collected also because they're not common to find. The more common species, you'll find that we have big files for them because wherever people go, they'll find it, so they'll collect. And that tells us a story. Sometimes you have a plant that has been collected a lot in the past years, and then in the current days, it's not much collected. That could tell you something. All right? If the botanists are not going there, then it means that the plant is just reducing in size. Population size is going down, so it is reducing. That gives us a lot of information for conservation. And we usually have space for notes on this label. So if there are any known values to the collector in that location, they put that information here. Say if I went collecting in Mbale, and I know the plant use in Masaka, I will not put the Masaka use for the Mbale specimen. I'll have to ask the people in Mbale. They tell me what they use it for, and that is what I'll write. Okay? So this ethnobotanical information from the herbarium label is correlated to the area of collection. Okay?
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes,
then?
please.
What about local languages and capturing that?
Yes. Occasionally, the plants will have the local names given, and the collector will include the local name. But then we find that people will name the plants that they find useful. If they have a use for it, they give it a name. Yeah. And out of the so many plants that we have, Uganda has close to 5,000 species of plants that are known so far. So out of them, very few have local names because the people don't have a direct use with it. Yes. But yeah, we do collect the local names when we get them. Though they also have their challenge in a country like Uganda, where we speak diversity of languages. So bringing them here, if local names are given for the different collections, then you can gather the local names for the one species. Okay? So that is another importance of the herbarium, collecting such information. All right?
Is it also important the color, the original color of the plant while it's alive for your collections? Because of course I'm seeing most of them are now brownish, creamish.
Yeah.
So is it important to take note of the original color?
Yes,
And all
please.
those hues and everything.
I hope I can find one that has notes.
There's the other one that has yellow leaves on it. Flowers in
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
For example, this person gave us notes. All right? Can you read for us?
Herb with long stalk, large leaves at base, flowers. I can't read that one.
Straw.
Straw.
Straw brown.
Straw brown.
So that
okay,
is the color of
I see,
flowers.
yeah.
All right?
Upper
Leaves.
and straw
And stem.
and stem. Thick,
Woolly.
woolly. Okay.
All right?
Okay.
So the collector often will try to describe the plant as they see it. A lot of these features will not show on a dry specimen, so they give the colors, the smells, any exudes. Does it give sap? What color is the sap? Is it sticky? If you're brave enough, you can taste it and tell us whether it is sweet.
I have a question. Is there a plant with sap that's poison enough that one leaf could kill a human? Because most times I think you have to take a good
Well, she's asking whether there is a plant that is so poisonous that one leak would kill a human. I have seen that. I should say I've seen that with children. There are certain plants, unfortunately, they're ornamental. People grow them in their
The one that there's
compounds
that
at
has
home.
yellow
Yeah.
flower.
That one is very
It's like a
poisonous.
hedge.
The one we use for the hedge, that one's poisonous.
Then there's another one that grows like a yam, the Ugandan yam, all right? That is also very poisonous. So a child will just put a little bit of the leaf on the tongue, and then they'll get some something to do with the nervous system, you know? The worst that I've witnessed, the child's tongue kind of was pulling out. Of course, it didn't detach. And well, if you delay to get treatment, I think that could be very fatal. Okay? So yes, even one leak can be dangerous. We have this. You can take it around, but do not open. All right?
What is the liquid inside?
What is the liquid inside? That is ethanol. Okay? You can use a lot of other preservatives on the market. Yes. The ones that have formalin in them are the best preservatives. But if you follow the guidelines of the WHO, even formalin has It's regulated. Yes, you can use it, but it's regulated.
It matches with my dress.
So, if we kept these plants that way, all right? This is small. It doesn't have leaves, okay? So the size of the jar that would take this would be big, okay? So for issues of space, what we keep in liquid, that is called liquid preservation. This is a standard herbarium specimen or standard herbarium voucher. So the space you'd need to keep that 3D is a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so in liquid we only keep things like flowers, fruits, or parts that we may want to study the anatomy of later on. Okay, yes. So
inside.
And resin hardens, so it makes it hard to get it to it later.
resin.
Access the.
That's why I asked whether you
Please.
can.
Keeping in resin, that would be the same thing. But now we do research with these specimens. We come back to them, use a lens to look through, put it under the microscope. And the thing is, once you have a layer of material over it, then it's difficult for you to see deeply, to see the small parts under the microscope. Okay? The other question was about regrowing.
Yeah.
All right? Now, the herbarium does not preserve that way, all right? Sometimes we have collections of seed, okay? But then you have to seed bank them, all right? So then you would have a section of a seed bank. In this herbarium, we don't seed bank. If we have seeds that we want to preserve, then we send them to the National Seed Bank. Okay? Yes, at the Botanic Garden there's a seed bank. All right? So that those ones keep the seed. And they freeze them at temperatures, there are protocols that they follow to keep the seeds alive. For us, when we keep things this way over time, they will die. Okay? The other question was on what? Cupboards being fire-proof. Now that is a long, interesting story. Traditionally, most herbaria have been using the wooden cabinets, okay? And I should say I've been lucky to visit a herbarium that has once been burnt down, okay? That is the British Museum. It was shelled in one of the world wars, and they lost specimens. I saw the specimens that were partially burnt, Yeah, the useful ones they've kept, okay? So yes, wood burns. This is paper. This is very nice fuel. In case of fire, that would be disastrous. So over the years, they developed cabinets that look more like this, okay? Metallic. And they thought that, yes, this is the best way to safeguard against fire. And recently, they found that no, metal is the worst. Yes, because when the fire comes, the metal it's a conductor of heat, okay? So even before the fire reaches the cabinet, the heat will char the specimens inside, okay? The wood will only be affected if the flames reach it, okay? But these metallic ones, heat is just enough to char these, yeah?
So even the British Museum uses wood cabinets.
Maybe they changed in the recent years, but when I was there, they were wooden. But a lot of herbaria had changed to the metallic ones because they made it in a sophisticated way that they are together. They actually call them compactors. So you just push them to one side of the room, and that room can carry a lot. So as you're working, you want to go through the bays in between. They have levers that you turn, okay? So you create space where you need it, work there, and then close up the gap. Okay? Yeah, it's a very sophisticated way to keep specimens because then you don't use a lot of space. With the wooden cabinets, then you need the base through the cabinets for working. But with the metallic compactors, then you don't need that. Okay? But they're not good for fire. Instead, we protect ourselves from fire in various ways. Here we have a fire blanket. This works for small flames. And if you're around, if a fire started maybe at a at one point, a socket, it could be your laptop connection. Then you just get the blanket out and cover it. Then it will suffocate the fire. Okay? We have extinguishers, but please don't ask me whether it's working.
I can't take that one out. I have a question. Have there been efforts to digitize all this information? Because in the event of a fire, like what happened with the British Museum, you don't have to start from scratch if you have this information digitized. Are you guys doing that? Or
Yes, we are doing it. We do have a database that is growing really slowly because of lack of manpower. Not funding, the gadgets we have. But the staff, we have a really thin staff. We use students a lot. But you know, as a student is beginning to learn, then they go. And then you get a new one, you have to train again, and so on.
I think you have some interns.
They are welcome.
we need volunteers or interns?
You're welcome.
I need to find, she showed us the 90% of plants out in the world. I need to know what else I can eat besides what we have on the table now. So.
Yeah. Yes, please.
Can anyone collect? What are the rules for collection?
The rules for collection are simple. Okay? Can you make a nice specimen? That is rule number 1. Okay? Can you give information as we require on the herbarium label? Rule number 2. Can you deliver it here?
Yes.
Rule number 3. So to answer you in brief, anyone can collect. We get specimens from a lot of people. Of late we are getting specimens from I don't want to call them herbalists, but people who are preparing herbal stuff, okay? These days it's a new thing. NDA, National Drug Authority, is making a requirement of them to come and verify their plants with us, okay? So in that way, they bring the specimens and we keep them. We keep them.
Pay them?
No.
I have a question.
No. When you bring your specimen, as long as you have the names and you have everything, we receive it for free. All right? And we shall not pay you. It's a gift.
I have one more question.
Yes, please.
You mentioned that there are areas where there have been more collections than others. As a future collector, what are some areas that where you haven't received more plants from, and what are the areas where you've collected a lot?
Okay. Go to Karamoja.
Ooh, amazing.
All right? You may avoid Moroto area.
Volunteer. No.
All right?
Kabong.
The Moroto area has been collected
I
much.
saw it on
But
UNESCO.
Kabong,
Kabong is
up there,
virgin.
Kotido, you know, towards the South Sudan border,
And Turkana.
Tukana,
Yeah.
please go and collect for
I
us.
will, for sure.
All right? And then the whole of the northern border stretch up to
What's that?
Koboko. Yeah, I think Koboko is the last district there. That northern stretch, all the way down to Kitgum, those many kilometers from around Kitgum upwards, and the whole of the northern stretch, please go and collect for
And
us.
a lot of the biodiversity that side has been untouched for years.
Yes.
People don't go there, so even the air. My
Yeah,
goodness,
that's
it's
true.
so fresh. Like Kabong.
we haven't-
Sorry, I'm talking about Kabong.
You're speaking so passionately.
I'm so sorry. No, it's not me. I've not been to your home, but I've been to Kabong, and it was fascinating to see how there's like butterflies I've not seen before. There's it looks untouched. Like people have not.
To tell you the
It's
truth,
amazing.
I too get fascinated by the plant diversity in Karamoja.
Yeah.
It's quite
Amazing.
unique, different from the rest of Uganda.
Yes.
Maybe the Kenyans who come from the Turkana side may not see what we see.
Yeah.
But when you go to Karamoja, even the plant diversity is unique. Okay?
True.
Yeah, very different.
What's a good way to preserve it? Okay, I collect it. And then how do I keep it to bring it to you?
The process of preservation.
Yes.
All right. We use really cheap material, okay? There are sophisticated material that is tailor-made for the herbarium, but that is expensive. We also don't use
Yeah,
them,
but I see if I'm
all right?
doing it.
But if you're doing them, all you need to do is buy old newspapers, okay? And the good thing, when they're old, they're cheap, all right?
No, they're expensive.
No, they're cheaper.
They're
If you buy in kilos,
Yeah,
they're very
it's
cheap.
A lot cheap.
The very old one. Don't go looking for a specific one. Okay? So you need these newspapers. We need a plant press. Remind me to show you while we go out what a plant press looks like. If you don't have a plant press, you just need to cut cardboard this size. All right? This, by the way, I forgot to say, is standard size.
Oh,
Yes.
What size is it?
A2. Yeah,
This is a little
F3.
thin.
It's like an F3.
A little bit
Oh, yeah,
smaller.
it is.
Yeah?
It is about A3.
All right?
Every extent.
So this will be standard for most herbaria. I say most, okay? I know the US size is a little bit bigger. You know, everything there is bigger. Let me do for you another one.
My question was, are we allowed to visit and see some of the herbs that people have been bringing in and review some of the notes they have been making over time?
Can I get to you? Let me first finish this one. All right? So with the newspapers and the cardboard, then you get your plant, spread it out in just one sheet of paper, all right? And then cushion it with booklets, 1 or 2, depending on the thickness of your specimen, how much water it has. So you put a cushion under and one on top after you've spread out your specimen to display the different flower parts, okay? And then you cover and put another cushion. Now that cushion helps to blot out the water.
Cover with
A newspaper.
newspaper.
Yes.
I thought
Right?
you had to have this.
Mm-mm. You'll have a newspaper, open it, just one leaf, put the specimen, spread it out nicely, and cover. And then under it, you'll have booklets of newspaper, and then place small booklets on top, okay? So those booklets will serve 2 functions: to blot out water from your specimen, and also to cushion it against imprinting by the next specimen you'll place on top, all right? So you do that, sometimes we even do to up to a pile that is this big, and then you bundle them up tightly. Right? You read it tightly, and that is called pressing. You're pressing so that it dries flat. Okay? And then that package, shall I call it a package? Now it's a plant press with specimens. You put out to dry. There are different ways that you can dry. I'll show you how we are drying ours here. You can put it out, what we call air drying, right? But these days, because we do molecular work, DNA work, we don't want you to cook it, yeah? Because when you cook it, as in drying at very high heat, then the DNA will die, okay? Yeah, so we use moderate heat, around 40 degrees Celsius.
So DNA is still present?
In here?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It may have degraded over the years, but yes,
Should be
it is
traceable.
present. It is traceable,
Okay.
all right? And check on your specimens. If they're quick to dry, they're not so succulent, they don't have a lot of water, you'll be able to dry it in 5 days about, and then bring it to us after you've made the label.
So
Okay.
I put it in fresh out of the ground into the paper, on the paper?
Yes, please.
Okay.
That is the best,
Okay.
okay? Because then the leaves have not withered.
Mm.
But if you're out in the field collecting, it may not be practical. So you may need to collect several of them in a polythene bag so that they are preserved looking fresh.
Okay.
If you just move around with it, it will wither, and by the time you press it, the leaves will be drooping, and maybe they have, I don't know, they'll look. These days, when we go out to collect, then we collect specifically for DNA analysis. All right? For these very old specimens, then someone would come and pluck a little bit off the specimen. But if everyone is doing that, it's not desirable. Right? So now we equip ourselves beforehand and we collect in silica gel. In here is silica gel. If you have been buying leather equipment, handbags, shoes, stuff, you see that little package. Do not eat. So that is what we have here, and you can see the little leaves in here. You can pass this one. Don't open, please. Yeah. So then we keep the DNA material, or would-be DNA material, in the vials in silica gel. Okay? This is one way of preserving. And the key functions of the herbaria, among others, the most critical one is identifying plants. So you have your plant out there, you know the local name, and you want to communicate to someone in China. You're not going to tell them Mairumonde. They won't know what Rumonde is. So you may want to get the botanic name, so you come to us to get the scientific name. And we look at the specimens to give the names. We also use literature. So here we have some books. And perhaps for your interest, this would be a very important book for you guys. We have books like this made for the tourist botanist, all right? You have colored pictures and notes in here. These help us in our work. And I'm just picking out the ones that would be really special to you guys. There are some old books that you can no longer find, all right? With colored illustrations. This is just for naming, all right? And then, sorry? And then on the purely scientific side, then we have our books with taxonomic information, taxonomic keys, and sometimes the illustrations here made by people like you. Can we find one? Like that. Okay? So, yes, we employ artists to draw for us, to make botanical illustrations. We use photographs, we use our cameras, and so on. Okay? Want to see that? So this is a herbarium library. Every herbarium will have the specimens and the library. Okay? So I'll take you through the collection, just walk through and feel that you've been in the herbarium.
So on those files, which the books, all the ones
yes, those are collections that have been made by students over time. Sorry?
Is there something wrong with this one?
We need you to come and volunteer and help me.
I'm coming.
Putting them in there. All right, can we look at this in a few minutes? So if we can just walk through and see what it looks like. I think this is the bigger space. So some specimens are kept in special boxes, like here. We have the lichens. Lichens are those mushroom-looking like things. They grow on trees, on rocks, okay? And these we do not glue them on the herbarium sheet, but keep them in papers like this. So you open this, it still has the same herbarium label. And in here, you have the specimen. We said they grow on trees, so many times you cannot detach it well from the substrate.
Yeah.
If it's a rock,
This cannot be pressed. Like the
no,
other
these
ones.
cannot be
So you
pressed.
just let them air dry.
Yes, and then you envelope them. Okay? So we have a fruit collection separate from the specimens. And you will find that each fruit collection has a tag giving us the name of the species. So if you want to look at what the leaves of this look like, then you trace it through the standard herbarium specimen. All right? Yeah.
These are fruits.
These are fruits.
You dry them before you
Yes,
store them.
please. Yeah.
What is this fruit that looks like a brain?
This one.
It's one of the forest species.
It's not that they don't have to be edible, right? It's just the fruit of that tree.
No, they don't have to be edible. As long as you can dry it and preserve it this way, then you collect it. If it's so fleshy, it can be difficult to keep, then that you don't bring. Okay? Yeah. So I'll show you the drying and plant press, and then we shall maybe discuss a little bit outside and in there. This is a plant press. There are 2 wooden frames, and usually they have straps to hold. So if you will come over here and peep, you will see 2 plant presses with straps inside, and we have a fan dryer. It's blowing hot air through the plant press to get the specimens dry. All right, just to show you, this is a screen house, not greenhouse, but screen house, all right? And here we have some experiments going on. On the benches, you see, there are some experiments by students. And then people have been asking us to provide them with ornamental plants and medicinal plants as well. So that is a new project we are undertaking. So we are trying to multiply some ornamentals to start with, and then we have some useful plants there. That is Prunus africana that we have grown there.
What is it?
Seedlings of Prunus africana.
English name?
I forget the English name. That is the cancer tree I was talking about. Okay? Yes. So keep out things like flies. Usually we don't want to pollinate, cross-pollinate individuals, so we screen them off. Yeah. So very soon, yes you can. Very soon we shall be producing seedlings or plants to sell to the public, ornamentals and medicinal plants. Okay? Yeah. So when you get out, you close. All right? Then let us walk through the rest of the garden. This part of the garden has the ponds. And in the ponds we grow the water plants for showing the diversity of water plants that we have, and for teaching, of course. All right? So there, well, maybe before I should say that some of the ponds, over time, they have started to leak. They don't hold the water. So the dry ones are due for renovation, and the good ones have something. All right? So over there, you see that light green floating thing? That is a water weed that grows really fast. It multiplies itself like 3 times in 2 days. Here in front of us, the other one floating. I think so. I'm not sure which. Maybe, I don't know. It multiplies really fast. So in front of us here, the big leaves. Does anyone know what that is? Water hyacinth. You've missed the beautiful flower. Then behind the gentleman, we have wild rice. Yeah, you've missed. It's not in bloom. And then those are species that came as ornamental plants but are now in our ecosystems. That is one of them. And the long leaf behind that purple flower is a species that was discovered in Uganda in, I think it was 1997 for the first time. Now, interestingly, what I find very interesting about that, it is a species that grows in Sudan and on the Nile. So patches of it were found in central Uganda, Lake Choga, and we don't know how they came. Could they have come against the water current?
No.
Could they flow upwards?
But it's more likely downwards.
Yeah. Anyway, somehow we found them there, and it's the only place that species is grown.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting.
Okay. And then behind us, this way, we have the plants organized in order beds, some taxonomic arrangement. We can walk through. Maybe I could show you some special ones. All right. So I don't know what to say when I'm here, because a lot of these are medicinal. All right? Like this we use to treat malaria.
What is it called?
Vanonia amygdalina. I don't know the English names. Muluza.
It might be helpful maybe with the digitization and everything to have the local names, because then it might be easier to just say, or even if it's medicine to what, things like that. Maybe that might be also.
You see, putting up that information has really worked against us. Okay. First of all, we've tried to label the specimens. I don't know if around me I have any remaining label. And people collecting scrap, they come and pluck the labels off. All right? So that goes. And then the plants that they know are medicine, they come and over-harvest. For example, if you see, you can look at it. Okay? Yes, a lot of people will call it cactus, but it's not cactus. It's in the family of cactus. It is Opuntia. It is known for being medicinal, okay? And it had grown big, so it was visible from behind the fence.
Whoa.
And people would come, want to walk through, and you don't have time to guide them, so you allow them to walk through, and they bag stems of it, all right? And then they have reduced it to this level. And our gardener was telling me that it had produced 2 of these. Usually it produces 2. There's one there. So this lady comes pretending to be a visitor, and she broke off a bud, all right? So managing and maintaining medicinal plants in the garden, I should say in the middle of the city, is really, really difficult, okay? People always come, they ask if we have excess of material, but usually in the botanic garden you don't have excess. We give them if we can, but...
Is that the edible cactus as well?
Well, I know it's medicinal. Whether it's eaten for food, I don't know. It can make alcohol. Yes. So that is the challenge we've had with medicinal plants, and that is how the idea of cultivating them for sale came up. All right? So if we produce several of them, put them out there, and then people come and take at a price, at a fee, because we need to pay for the potting material as well.
How long do these take to grow?
It is slow growing. I can't tell how many days or months, but it grows slowly.
I have a question.
Okay?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
Aren't all plants medicinal? Like anything you eat, isn't it benefiting you? That's medicinal. And
They have made a new terms, nutraceutical. Okay?
yeah.
For something that is nutritious and then is beneficial kind of medicine.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Most of the plants are.
Yeah. Then my last question.
Yes, please.
Which is more of a, to you as a botanist, it's a philosophical question. Why this separation between indigenous ways of knowing and the science? Doesn't it bug you as a botanist and as your mother's child, the things you learned from your society, the naming and all that, that you have to separate these two worlds?
Okay.
Yeah.
When it comes to value of plants, separating the scientific and the traditional world, actually the traditional world, traditional knowledge, usually informs the scientific side. Okay?
Yeah.
And then the science will filter the traditional knowledge. Like they'll say, for example, this is used to treat ulcers. Yesterday someone came looking for part of that to treat their patient with cancer. That I didn't know. I heard of cancer for the first time. So what component of this is useful in treatment? Remember, there's a thin line between medicine and poison. If you take your, what drug, I don't know, Fancida or whatever, you're supposed to take, in given doses, all right? So likewise, plants are the same. What are you taking that is beneficial and what are you taking that would be not beneficial, okay? It may not have any effect on you or it could be detrimental. So now what the science does is to find out exactly. If they say it is treating ulcers, ulcers is about wounds. Wounds are about bacteria. what is there that can kill the bacteria, so that you only take that component and not the other stuff that is not useful. Why should you take a whole mug of useless stuff when actually what is active are a few meals? All right? Now that is what the science does. But then the other thing that I also find puzzling is the myth that is often associated with the traditional knowledge. There's a lot of myth, all right? They'll tell you to cure yourself of the skin disease, you have to bathe this concoction, bathe it while facing the sun. Now, is that myth or is it real? All right? Then there your personal belief comes in to control that. Okay? Yes.